Ladies and gentlemen, what you're looking at here is a book that I kept during my deployment that consisted of how many miles at the start of each mission we had, how many miles were at the finish, the fuel, and the total miles. One thing you can see is the math that I did here. I have a cavalry scout, and you know for sure that infantry can't do math like that. What do you see here? So I'm going to go through a couple of different pictures here. November 12th, 2006, miles at start, miles at finish. We do something called PMCS, Preventive Maintenance Checks and Services. You see my notes here. Door's fucked up. TC door won't close. And the other door does not have springs. Now, why is this important, ladies and gentlemen? Because as we go from the battlefield to the boardroom, documentation is going to be key. It's going to be vital to the success of any business, and your employees need to know how to document every single interaction they're going to have with their customers, or any line of work or any job task that requires documentation is going to be very, very, very important. Because when I was a call center supervisor, I said, if it's not documented, then it didn't happen. Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Kendrick on the Line Speaking Agency. That was a very long intro, but I had to make a point and just make fun of the infantry because, they suck. All right. So, documentation. Let's get into it for first of all, what you just saw. So I was a lead driver in Iraq, and to make my job easier as the lead driver and for me to work with our maintenance crew, hey, let's document anything that's wrong with the truck. And if you love to drive as much as I did back in Iraq, you're driving that truck in the daytime and at night, and if a turn doesn't feel right, or if power steering fluid, you can't turn the wheel. You got to turn the wheel with two hands because it's run out of power steering fluid. So let's document these things. So when it's time for you to go to maintenance, you can say, hey, I documented this and my truck is messed up. Now, how many of you have been a customer in a call center where you call into the call center and you say, hey, I had this issue with whatever, and the person you're talking to says, well, that's not documented. We don't see it. And you just blow your top, right? Very, 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 very frustrating, because I've been there as a call center supervisor, teaching employees how to document and the importance. And I've also been there as a customer calling in to a call center and say, hey, I talked to somebody for 30 minutes and you mean to tell me that this isn't documented? So why is it important to every organization to document customer interactions? Because that's your lifeline. Because that teaches the other employee what happened on the previous interaction. Okay, and documentation is important throughout all lines of business. I work in call center. Well, I used to work in call centers, but the importance of documenting your work is so that the next person, either up or down the chain of command, knows what happened on your interaction. Okay? And it needs to be documented to the T, because sometimes, and let's keep it real, customers lie. And if you don't have anything documented, you have to take, it's you versus that customer's word. All right. Or you versus if you are like a work in law enforcement, a chain of, or a chain of, what do they call it? Evidence. When you have to log in evidence or something like that, hey, who had whatever? Why isn't it documented? It goes to show why it's so important to document these things here. Now, what happens if documentation goes wrong? Let's say the customer calls in and says, hey, David's told me that my bill would be reduced by $50. And I called in on February 4th, 2026. And I talked to David, because if you ever worked in a call center, you hate this. You hate it. You hate it. You hate it. It's when a customer goes, what's your name? Because I'm taking notes too. In some call centers, they allow you to give a alias, or some call centers don't. They require you to use your real name. So if you ever been on the phone and the customer goes, "What's your name?" Because I'm documenting this call too, you're gonna go. But, it lets you know that your customers, they're smart as well. And they only do that because they've been through the ringer. They've talked to 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 people. This is my 5th time calling in about the same issue. There's something we have called first call resolution. And you don't want the customer to call in 4 or 5 times about the same thing. So what happens when documentation goes wrong? You lose customers, you lose money, you lose contracts because it's your word versus the customer's word. And you don't want to call your customer a liar. And then in this new day and age, when I was starting my first job as a call center supervisor for AT&T, there was no Twitter and Facebook, Twitter, all that, but people didn't go online to complain as much. Now everything is online. So you don't want to be that one person that gets screenshotted or they talk to you and say, "Hey, I talked to David and they said nothing was documented, yada yada yada. What's going on with documentation?" Next, the lessons that we can learn from documentation, especially in a supervisor role like I was. We used to have something called a PIP, a performance improvement plan. And if you have a customer, or not a customer, but an employee who isn't performing up to company standards, you put them on a performance improvement plan. And this plan can be a 30-day improvement plan, a 45-day improvement plan, or a 90-day improvement plan. And what you do, you bring them into a little counseling session, say, "Hey, David, you aren't performing up to company standard. So we're going to put you on a performance improvement plan for 45 days. And we're going to just monitor your improvement or your performance. That way, you start that paper trail when you need to terminate an employee, or what we call, back in the day, moving them out of the business. Congratulations, you just got promoted to customer, right? But that documentation is important. If you don't document what happened throughout that performance improvement plan, because that employee may want to come back and sue the company, right? And I used to work in collections, and trust me, in collections, people got sued every day. I worked at a company that got sued so much they had to change the name of the company. So please document. And let's talk about business. I'm a professional speaker. I want to get paid. So, hey, if somebody's interested in hiring me to speak, which you should be, www.dkendrickjr.com. Hey, here's the contract. Read it over. Let's document what our conversation was. And here's how the beginning of the conversation goes. I get a call. "Hey, David, we seen your video on YouTube and we would like for you to speak." Okay, here's my rate, And then after that phone call, click, let's document what we just talked about so that you can go to your marketing department or your head of finance and say, "Hey, David wants to speak for this company, or we're thinking about bringing David in, Lion Speaking Agency. He wants this much to speak." Let's make sure everything is documented so that, hey, when you come back and say, let's say I want $10,000 for a speech, you come back with a contract that says $7,000. Nah, that's not what was documented. That's not what we agreed to. Here's the conversation I sent to you as soon as we got done. So document. And it's just a quick, small little video for me going from the battlefield to the boardroom, and why documentation was important back then, why documentation is important now, and why you should bring me in for a speech to talk to your new frontline employees who are going to be dealing with customers, whether it's in a customer-facing role, online, or via chat, and just talk about the importance of documentation. I documented how many miles I traveled every mission in Iraq during the height of the war, and it's just as important to document every single customer interaction, no matter how important or unimportant you may think it is. It needs to be documented. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is David Kendrick Jr., owner of Lion Speaking Agency. And to find out more about me, please visit me at www.dkendrickjr.com. Have me come in, talk to your new frontline leaders, your new employees. That's about it. That's all I got for now. Let's talk about me talking for you. Peace.